What if one clumsy, desperate dance fueled by too much wine and a broken heart accidentally landed you in the lap of the most powerful, untouchable king in the kingdom? Chapter 1. The Night I Broke My Promise. The moon hung low and swollen over the Silver Fang territory, bathing the ancient forest in silver light. Tonight was the mating ball, the one night every year when unmated wolves from every pack gathered under the open sky, hoping the moon goddess would reveal their fated bonds. Laughter and music spilled from the great clearing, torches flickering like restless stars. I should never have come. My name is Alice Voss. 21 years old, the only daughter of Mira Voss, once the most respected healer in our small border pack. Everyone knew me as the quiet one, the girl who helped her mother gather herbs at dawn, who knelt in prayer at the moon shrine, who had never let a male touch more than my fingertips. "You will make me proud," Mama used to whisper, brushing my dark hair before sleep. "Keep your heart and body pure until the goddess chooses for you." I had promised. I had meant it, but promises break when the person you made them to is dying. 3 weeks ago, the fever took her. It started as a cough, then turned into something vicious that clawed at her lungs and stole her strength day by day. The pack healer shook his head. The elders offered empty words. No one had the rare moonbloom root needed to slow the sickness, and no one would spend coin on a widowed healer's daughter. "Sell what you have left," one elder had said, not meeting my eyes. "Your innocence is worth more than herbs." I hated him for it, I hated them all, but I loved her more. So I stole a dress from the communal laundry, crimson silk that clung like a second skin, cut low in front and lower in back. I drank 3 cups of elderberry wine until the world softened at the edges, and I walked into the mating ball alone. The clearing was alive with bodies. Wolves in half-shift danced under strings of lanterns, fur flashing along arms and spines, eyes glowing gold and amber. The drums beat like a second heartbeat. I pushed through the crowd, the wine burning courage through my veins. I needed someone, anyone, who would pay enough to buy the moonbloom from the black market traders in the south. I danced without grace, only desperation. Hips swaying, hair loose and wild, I let the music carry me toward the raised dais at the far end where the visiting royals sat. I didn't look up. I couldn't bear to see judgment in familiar faces. Then the world tilted. One misstep, one drunken stumble, and I fell backward, straight into a lap that felt carved from stone. Strong hands caught my waist before I could hit the ground. The music seemed to fade. Gasps rippled outward like rings in water. I blinked up and my breath stopped. He was beautiful in the way a storm is beautiful, terrifying and magnificent. Broad shoulders strained against a black ceremonial tunic embroidered with silver threads. Raven hair fell to his shoulders, framing a face cut from sharp angles and shadowed pain. Eyes like chipped ice stared down at me, unreadable.
Before we continue, kindly tell us where you are watching from, and don't forget to hit the subscribe button, because every day we have an amazing story that will make your day.
Kingthorn Blackwood, the Lycan King. The entire clearing had gone still. No one touched the king. No one even looked at him too long. Rumors had swirled for years. A curse, a battlefield injury, a broken heart, whatever the cause, his body had not answered to any female since his mate died a decade ago. He was untouchable, impotent, a living ghost on the throne, and I was on his lap. Heat flooded my cheeks. I tried to stand, but his fingers tightened, huge, calloused, impossibly warm. Beneath the thin silk of my dress I felt it, the unmistakable hardening against my thigh. A low growl rumbled from his chest, so deep only I could hear it. My heart slammed against my ribs. Shock, shame, and something darker, something that made my skin prickle, rushed through me. I'm sorry, Your Majesty," I stammered, voice barely a whisper. His lips brushed the shell of my ear, breath hot and scented with pine and smoke. "You started this, little one." The words were gravel and velvet. "Finish it." I scrambled off his lap, nearly falling again. The crowd parted like I carried plague. I ran, through the dancers, past the torches, into the dark tree line until my lungs burned and tears blinded me. I didn't see the way his eyes followed me, glowing silver in the dark. I didn't hear the way his claws extended, digging into the arms of his throne. 3 days, that's all it took. On the third night, the front door of our tiny cottage exploded inward. I was at Mama's bedside, changing the cool cloth on her forehead, when the scent of winter storm and wild forest flooded the room. He filled the doorway like a god of wrath, black cloak swirling, eyes feral. Behind him, half the pack had gathered, whispering in terror and awe. "Elara Voss," his voice rolled like thunder. "You are mine." Mama stirred weakly. "Elara? Who?" I stood, trembling. "Please, Your Majesty, my mother is ill, I can't." He crossed the room in 3 strides, cupped my chin with fingers that could crush bone but touched me like porcelain. "You awakened me," he said, low enough only I could hear. "After 10 years of nothing, you made me feel. You are my mate. The goddess has spoken." Tears spilled down my cheeks. This is my first time. I've never. Something fierce and tender flashed across his face. But the need in him was too strong, too long denied. He swept me into his arms as though I weighed nothing and carried me outside. The entire pack waited in the moonlight. King Thorn set me on my feet in the center of the circle, but kept one possessive arm around my waist. "Behold your future queen," he declared, voice carrying to the farthest wolf. "Elara Voss is my fated mate. Any who challenge this will answer to me." Cheers erupted, some genuine, some fearful. I stood frozen, tears streaming silently. My innocence, my promise, my choice, all gone in front of everyone. He bent his head, lips brushing my ear again. "Tonight, little one, I will make you mine in every way." Mama from her bed inside would believe I was at the moon shrine praying for her recovery. She would never know the price I paid. And as the king led me toward the royal carriage, his hand burning against the small of my back, I felt the first crack in my heart. Pain and terror, and shamefully, the tiniest spark of reckless heat. I had saved my mother's life, but I had lost my own in the process. Or so I thought. Chapter 2, Taken to the Palace. The royal carriage rocked gently as it climbed the winding mountain road, wheels crunching over frost-kissed gravel. I sat pressed against the far wall, knees drawn to my chest, the crimson silk dress now feeling like a brand against my skin. King Thorn occupied the opposite seat, filling the space with his presence alone. Legs spread, arms folded, eyes never leaving me. I couldn't look at him. Every time I tried, the memory of his body hardening beneath me at the ball flooded back, hot and humiliating. And worse, the memory of his public claiming, the way the pack had stared as he carried me away from the only home I'd ever known. Mama's weak voice still echoed in my ears. "Alice, who?" She would wake tomorrow and find me gone. She would think I had abandoned her in her hour of greatest need. Silent tears slid down my cheeks. I wiped them angrily with the back of my hand, but more came. A low sound, almost a sigh, came from across the carriage. Then the seat dipped as Thorn moved. Before I could protest, he was beside me, one massive arm sliding around my shoulders, pulling me against the solid wall of his chest. I stiffened, ready to fight, but the warmth of him seeped through the thin silk and into my frozen bones. "Cry if you must, little one," he murmured, voice softer than I thought possible from a king who had just torn a girl from her life. "But know this, your mother will not suffer another day without the care she needs." I turned my face up to him, searching for mockery. There was none, only a fierce intensity in those storm-gray eyes. "How can you promise that?" My voice cracked. "The moonbloom root costs more gold than our pack sees in a year." His thumb brushed a tear from my cheek, the touch shockingly gentle. "Because I have already sent my fastest rider south with a purse heavy enough to buy every moonbloom trader's stock. By dawn tomorrow, your mother will have the finest healers in the kingdom at her bedside." I stared at him, throat closing. You did that?" "When?" "The morning after the ball." His lips twisted in something almost like pain. "The moment I understood what you had intended to do that night, what you were willing to sacrifice, I knew I could not let you pay that price with anyone else." A sob tore free before I could stop it. Relief, grief, shame, gratitude, all tangled together until I couldn't breathe. I buried my face in his tunic, fists clutching the fabric as I cried for everything I had lost and everything I had unexpectedly gained. His hand stroked my hair, slow and careful. as though I were something precious and breakable. "Forgive me," he whispered against my temple. "I took what should have been given freely. The wolf in me." After 10 years of silence, he recognized you and would not wait. I didn't answer. I couldn't, but I didn't pull away either. Hours later, the palace rose before us like a dream carved from moonlight and shadow. Black stone towers speared the sky, windows glowing amber against the snow-dusted peaks. Guards in silver armor snapped to attention as the carriage rolled through gates tall enough to swallow the stars. Servants scattered like startled birds when Thorn carried me inside himself. No one dared offer to take me from his arms. Up spiraling stairs, down corridors lit by torches that smelled of pine resin, until he pushed open a set of double doors and stepped into rooms that stole what little breath I had left. A fire roared in a hearth large enough to stand in. Fur rugs covered polished stone floors. A 4-poster bed dominated one wall, draped in midnight velvet. Moonlight poured through tall arched windows, turning everything silver and soft. He set me down gently beside a copper bathtub already steaming with scented water, jasmine and something wilder like crushed pine needles. My legs trembled. "I can have a maid assist you," he said quietly. I shook my head. The thought of strangers seeing me like this, ruined dress, tear-stained face, claimed but still untouched in the ways that mattered, was unbearable. He nodded once, then turned to leave. "Wait." The word slipped out before I could stop it. He paused, back to me, shoulders rigid. I don't know what happens now." My voice was small. "I don't know how to be whatever I'm supposed to be." Slowly he faced me again. Something raw and aching flickered across his features. "You are supposed to be mine," he said, "and I am supposed to be yours. Nothing else matters tonight." He crossed the room in measured steps, stopping an arm's length away. "But I will not take more than you offer, not again." The sincerity in his voice undid me. I reached for the ties at my shoulder with shaking fingers. The crimson silk slid down my body and pooled at my feet, leaving me bare except for moonlight and trembling courage. His sharp inhale was the only sound. I stepped into the tub, sinking until the water lapped at my collarbones. Only then did I dare look at him. Thorn's eyes had gone molten silver, pupils blown wide. Yet he stayed rooted, fists clenched at his sides. "Will you," I swallowed, "will you wash my hair?" A shudder ran through him. He knelt beside the tub, rolling his sleeves to reveal corded forearms marked with old battle scars. Strong hands, hands that could crush bone, gathered my heavy hair with reverence. He poured warm water over it, fingers massaging my scalp until my eyes fluttered closed. Every touch was careful, almost worshipful. When his knuckles brushed the nape of my neck, sparks danced down my spine. When he rinsed the soap away, his fingertips traced the line of my shoulder like he was memorizing it. I felt the shift in the air before I opened my eyes, tension coiling tighter, hotter. His breathing had roughened, water dripped from his hands onto the stone floor. "Alice," he said, voice gravel and smoke, "tell me to stop and I will leave this room." I turned in the water, knees drawn up, arms wrapped around them. My heart pounded so loudly I was sure he could hear it. "I don't want you to leave," I whispered. I'm afraid." Something tender broke across his face. He cupped my cheek, thumb stroking my lower lip. "Then let me show you there is nothing to fear in my hands." He lifted me from the tub as though I weighed nothing, water streaming from my skin. A thick towel appeared, soft as clouds, and he wrapped me in it, drying me with slow, deliberate strokes that left fire in their wake. When he reached the curve of my waist, his touch lingered. When he traced the swell of my breast, my breath caught. He carried me to the bed and laid me down on cool sheets that smelled of him. Pine and winter air and something darker, purely male. Moonlight painted silver paths across his face as he stood over me, tunic half unbuttoned, chest rising and falling fast. "Tell me yes," he said roughly, "or tell me no, and I sleep on the floor like a damned dog." I reached for him, fingers trembling against the hard plane of his chest. "Yes?" The word was barely out before his mouth claimed mine, hungry but controlled, deep and drugging. Hands that had conquered kingdoms shook as they mapped my body. He kissed down my throat, lingering at the spot where a mark would one day burn. When his lips closed over my breast, I arched with a cry I couldn't hold back. Every touch asked forgiveness. Every sigh from his lips sounded like gratitude. He brought me to the edge again and again with fingers and mouth alone, patient and relentless until pleasure crashed over me in waves that left me boneless and gasping his name. Only then did he rise above me, eyes locked on mine, asking one final time without words. I pulled him down, legs wrapping around his hips. He entered me slowly, inch by agonizing inch, pausing whenever I tensed, whispering praise and apologies against my skin. Pain flared, sharp and bright, then melted into something deeper, fuller. When he was fully seated, he stilled, forehead pressed to mine, breathing like he'd run 1,000 miles. "You are my miracle," he rasped, "my salvation." We moved together, tentative at first, then with growing urgency. The world narrowed to heat and friction and the broken sounds he made against my neck. When release took us both, it felt like the moon itself shattered overhead. Afterward, he held me close. One hand splayed possessively over my stomach, the other tangled in my hair. I drifted in the haze between sleep and waking, body sore and sated, heart confused but no longer entirely afraid. Just before dawn, a soft knock sounded at the door. Thorn rose, pulling on a robe, and accepted a sealed letter from a guard. He read it in silence, then returned to bed and tucked me against his chest again. "Your mother took the first dose of moonbloom tea an hour ago," he said quietly. "The healer says the fever broke. She will live, Alice." Tears came again, but this time they were sweet. I pressed my face to his throat, breathing him in. "Thank you." He kissed my temple, arms tightening. "Thank you for waking me." Outside, the first pale light of morning crept over the mountains, and in the quiet palace bed, the broken king and the girl who had accidentally saved him fell asleep, two wounded souls beginning, cautiously, to heal. But across the kingdom, in a humble cottage warmed by new fire and hope, a small wooden box had been left on the doorstep. Inside lay the remaining moonbloom roots, and a single black rose. No note, no signature. Only the faint scent of a magic older than the throne itself. Chapter 3, The Mark That Burns. Morning light filtered through heavy velvet curtains, painting golden stripes across the bed. I woke slowly, body aching in places I'd never known could ache. Sweet, secret places that brought heat to my cheeks even in sleep. Thorn's arm was still locked around my waist, his breath warm against the back of my neck. For one fragile moment, everything felt safe. Then memory crashed in. Mama's fever, the crimson dress, the lap, the claiming, my promise broken. I slipped from his hold before he stirred, wrapping myself in the discarded robe. The mirror across the room showed a stranger. Lips swollen, dark hair tangled, faint red marks blooming across my throat and breasts like petals. I touched one gently and shivered at the memory of his mouth there. Behind me, the bed creaked. Thorn sat up, sheet pooling at his waist, every line of muscle and scar catching the light. His eyes found me instantly, soft with something I wasn't ready to name. "Good morning, my queen," he said, voice rough with sleep. I hugged the robe tighter. "I'm not your queen, not yet. Not truly." His expression shuddered, but he rose and crossed to me, unconcerned with his nakedness. He stopped just short of touching me. "You are everything to me already. Titles are only words." I turned away from the mirror to face him. Anger I'd buried under exhaustion and relief rose sharp and hot. "You took my choice, Thorn, in front of my entire pack. You carried me away like property. And last night," my voice cracked. "Last night was beautiful, but it doesn't erase the first night. You didn't stop when I begged you to." Pain flashed across his face, raw and unguarded. "I know." He dropped to one knee, head bowed. A king, kneeling to me. I was a beast ruled by instinct and 10 years of emptiness. I will carry that shame forever. But I will spend every day trying to earn your forgiveness. The sight of him humbled stole my breath. I wanted to hate him. I wanted to run. But the memory of his gentle hands in the bath, the way he'd trembled when he entered me, the moon bloom already saving my mother, it tangled everything inside me. "I don't know how to do this," I whispered. "Be yours, be queen, any of it." He lifted his head, eyes fierce. "Then let me show you, one day at a time." A knock interrupted us, sharp, urgent. Thorn rose, pulling on trousers before opening the door just enough to speak to the guard. I caught only fragments. Council demands, marking ceremony, tradition. He closed the door and leaned against it, tension radiating from him. What is it? The Royal Council requests your formal marking tonight, he said quietly. Under the full moon. It is old law. A public bite to seal the bond, announced the Queen to every pack in the kingdom. Without it, challenges can be made. My stomach dropped. Public? He crossed to me in 2 strides, cupping my face. I will refuse them. Say the word and I send them away. But even as he spoke, I saw the cost in his eyes. Refusal would weaken his throne. Rumors of his impotence had already spread for years. Now whispers would say he could not even mark his own mate. Enemies would circle. I thought of Mama, safe now because of his gold. I thought of the black rose left on her doorstep. Something about it chilled me, though I couldn't say why. No, I said finally, we'll do it. Relief and dread warred on his face. Alice, I'm not ready to love you, I told him honestly. But I won't let you lose your crown because of me. He pulled me into his arms, burying his face in my hair. You humble me, little one. The day passed in a blur of preparation. Maids bathed and oiled my skin until it gleamed, braided my hair with silver threads and tiny moonstones. They dressed me in white, pure white, ironically, like a sacrifice. Thorn watched from the doorway, eyes darkening with every layer that fell away and every new one added. By dusk, the palace courtyard was packed. Torches blazed in a wide circle. Every noble, every alpha from allied packs, every high-ranking wolf had come to witness. I walked barefoot across cold stone, Thorn's hand at the small of my back the only warmth. A raised platform waited beneath the rising moon. Ancient runes glowed faintly around its edge. The crowd hushed. Thorn stepped forward first, addressing them in a voice that carried like thunder. Tonight I present Alice Voss, my fated mate, chosen by the moon goddess herself. She has awakened what was dead in me. She will stand at my side as queen. Murmurs rippled, some approving, many skeptical. I felt their stares like needles. He turned to me, eyes glowing silver. If you wish to stop this. I shook my head and stepped into his arms. The crowd faded, there was only him. He kissed me first. Slow, deep, claiming in a way words never could. The kiss turned hungry, desperate. I felt his fangs elongate against my lips. My own wolf rose in answer, recognizing him even if my heart still wavered. He broke the kiss and trailed his mouth down my throat to the soft spot where neck meets shoulder. Forgive me again, he whispered, so low only I heard. This will hurt. His teeth sank in. Fire exploded through me, white hot, searing every nerve. I cried out, clutching his shoulders, nails digging into muscle. But beneath the pain was something else. A rush of power, of connection, like threads of light weaving between our souls. Images flooded my mind. His images, a battlefield soaked in blood. A woman with golden hair lying broken in his arms, dying as he screamed her name. His first mate. Years of gray emptiness. Nights pacing palace halls, clawing at stone until his fingers bled. Then me, dancing drunkenly, falling into his lap. Life surging back into his body like spring after endless winter. He drank once, twice, then pulled back, licking the wound closed with careful strokes of his tongue. The pain ebbed into throbbing warmth. The mark would scar silver. Permanent, beautiful, undeniable. The crowd erupted in howls and cheers. The bond snapped fully into place. I felt him, his pride, his fear, his overwhelming love, like a second heartbeat inside my chest. He held me until my legs stopped shaking, then lifted me into his arms and carried me back toward the palace as tradition demanded. But halfway up the steps, the visions hit again, stronger this time. Not his memories. Mine. No hers. The golden-haired woman, his first mate, whispering a curse with her dying breath. Dark magic twisting around Thorn's heart. A hooded figure in the shadows accepting payment. Payment in black roses. And at the edge of the vision, a voice I almost recognized. The girl's untouched blood will break it, or bind him forever. I gasped, clutching Thorn's tunic. He froze. Alice, what is it? The mark burned hotter like it was warning me. I saw, I whispered against his throat. I saw how the curse began. His arms tightened until I could barely breathe. And, his voice was deadly calm, and someone in this palace paid for it, I said. Someone still here. Above us, the full moon hung cold and bright. Somewhere in the celebrating crowd below, a pair of eyes watched us retreat, and narrowed with fury. The black rose had not been a gift. It had been a promise, a battlefield soaked in blood. A woman with golden hair lying broken in his arms, dying as he screamed her name, his first mate. Years of gray emptiness, nights pacing palace halls, clawing at stone until his fingers bled. Then me, dancing drunkenly, falling into his lap. Life surging back into his body like spring after endless winter. He drank once, twice, then pulled back, licking the wound closed with careful strokes of his tongue. The pain ebbed into throbbing warmth. The mark would scar silver. Permanent, beautiful, undeniable. The crowd erupted in howls and cheers. The bond snapped fully into place. I felt him, his pride, his fear, his overwhelming love, like a second heartbeat inside my chest. He held me until my legs stopped shaking, then lifted me into his arms and carried me back toward the palace as tradition demanded. But halfway up the steps, the visions hit again, stronger this time. Not his memories. Mine. No hers. The golden-haired woman, his first mate, whispering a curse with her dying breath. Dark magic twisting around Thorn's heart. A hooded figure in the shadows accepting payment. Payment in black roses. And at the edge of the vision, a voice I almost recognized. The girl's untouched blood will break it, or bind him forever. I gasped, clutching Thorn's tunic. He froze. Alice, what is it? The mark burned hotter like it was warning me. I saw, I whispered against his throat. I saw how the curse began. His arms tightened until I could barely breathe. And, his voice was deadly calm, and someone in this palace paid for it, I said. Someone still here. Above us, the full moon hung cold and bright. Somewhere in the celebrating crowd below, a pair of eyes watched us retreat, and narrowed with fury. The black rose had not been a gift. It had been a promise. Chapter 4, Queen in Name Only. The mark on my neck throbbed like a living flame as Thorn carried me through the palace corridors. Cheers still echoed from the courtyard below, but they felt distant, muffled by the roar in my ears. The visions clung to me. Blood-soaked fields, a dying woman's curse, black roses, and that hooded figure accepting payment. Someone here, in these very halls, had wanted Thorn broken forever. He kicked open the doors to our chambers and set me gently on the edge of the bed as though I were made of glass. Moonlight poured through the windows, catching on the fresh silver scar at my throat. His eyes fixed there, pupils blown wide with possessive hunger. Mine, he growled softly, fingers tracing the mark. The touch sent lightning straight to my core. Now every wolf in the kingdom knows it. I should have pushed him away. Part of me still wanted to. But the bond hummed between us, warm and insistent, and my body, traitorous, aching, leaned into him without permission. He kissed the mark, tongue soothing the tender skin, and I gasped at the bolt of pleasure that shot through me. Within seconds, his mouth was on mine, desperate, devouring. Hands tore at the white ceremonial gown until it fell away in shreds. Cool air kissed my skin, then his hot palms replaced it, mapping every curve like he was starving. We stumbled toward the nearest wall, the floor-to-ceiling bookshelf in the private study adjoining our bedroom. Ancient tomes thumped to the carpet as he pressed me against the leather spines, lifting me effortlessly. My legs wrapped around his waist on instinct. Tell me you feel it too, he rasped against my lips. Tell me I'm not alone in this madness. I couldn't lie. The bond sang with his need, his fear, his love. I nodded, fingers threading through his hair, pulling him closer. He entered me in one deep thrust, swallowing my cry with another kiss. There was no patience tonight, no slow worship like the bath, no careful restraint. Only raw, frantic need. Books scattered as my back arched against the shelves. His hips snapped forward again and again, each stroke driving thought from my mind until there was nothing but heat and friction and the sound of our mingled breaths. When release hit, it shattered me. I bit down on his shoulder to muffle my scream, tasting salt and pine. He followed seconds later, burying himself to the hilt with a guttural groan that vibrated through my bones. We slid to the floor in a tangle of limbs, chests heaving. He tucked me against him, lips brushing my temple over and over. "I will find who did this," he vowed quietly. "The curse, the black rose, whoever paid to break me, they will bleed for it." I traced idle circles on his chest, fear creeping back in. "They're close, Thorn." I felt it. Someone who watched us tonight hated that the mark took. His arms tightened. "Then they will learn what happens when they threaten my queen." Morning brought no peace. I woke alone, the bed cold on his side. A note waited on the pillow in bold, slanted handwriting. "Council meeting at dawn. Eat, rest. I will return soon." Servants appeared the moment I stirred. Silent, efficient women who bathed and dressed me in royal blue velvet embroidered with silver wolves. They styled my hair high to display the fresh mark proudly. When I caught my reflection, I barely recognized the woman staring back. Regal, marked, claimed. Breakfast arrived on silver trays, fruits, warm bread, honeyed tea. I picked at it, stomach knotted. Then the whispers began. They followed me everywhere, in the corridors behind gloved hands, in the grand hall where nobles gathered for court, in the gardens where ladies strolled beneath frost-laced arches. Common border pack trash. Virgin one night, queen the next, how convenient. She bewitched him. Everyone knows the king was impotent. Her mother was only a healer, hardly royal blood. My daughter would have made a far better match. Each word was a needle under my skin. I kept my chin high, spine straight, the way Thorn had instructed, but inside I crumbled. I had no allies here, no friends. Only a crown I hadn't asked for, and a mate who disappeared into meetings the moment the sun rose. By midday, I sought refuge in the palace library. A vast, quiet space with soaring shelves and stained glass windows that painted the floor in jeweled light. I ran my fingers along ancient spines, searching for anything about blood curses or black roses, desperate to understand what I'd seen in the visions. A shadow fell across the page I was reading. Lady Seraphine Voss, no relation, thank the goddess, stood over me, beautiful and venomous. Golden hair coiled like a crown, lips painted blood red. Daughter of the wealthiest southern alpha, she had been the court's favorite to become queen before I stumbled into Thorn's lap. "Well," she purred, voice dripping honeyed poison. "If it isn't a little accident." I closed the book calmly, though my pulse thundered. Lady Seraphine. Her smile didn't reach her eyes. Such a dramatic rise, from praying in mud huts to warming the king's bed in a fortnight. One does wonder what talents you offered to achieve it so quickly. Heat flooded my cheeks, but I refused to look away. The moon goddess chose, not me, she laughed softly. The moon goddess has been known to be persuaded. Certain rituals, certain herbs. Her gaze flicked to my marked throat. Though I confess, I'm surprised the mark took it all. After 10 barren years, most assumed the king's wolf was dead. The implication hung heavy between us. Before I could answer, a low growl echoed through the library. Thorn stood in the doorway, eyes glowing lethal silver. Power rolled off him in waves, making the air itself feel thick. "Seraphine," he said, voice deadly quiet, "you will address your queen with respect, or you will not address her at all." She dropped into a curtsy, but her smile never wavered. "Of course, Your Majesty, I meant no offense." He crossed the room in 3 strides, placing himself between us like a shield. "Leave." She glided out, skirts whispering threats. Thorn turned to me, expression softening. I heard every word. I tried to shrug, but my voice wobbled. "It's nothing I haven't heard all day." His jaw clenched. "You should not have to hear it at all." He pulled me into his arms, chin resting atop my head. "I have been neglectful. Council business kept me, but that ends now. You are not alone in this, Alice." I clung to him, breathing in his scent until the knot in my chest loosened. That night he proved it. Dinner was private, just the 2 of us on the balcony overlooking snow-capped peaks. He fed me bites of roasted pheasant and ripe berries from his fingers, licking juice from my lips between kisses. When we returned inside, he undressed me slowly, reverently, kissing every inch of skin he exposed. But peace never lasts in palaces. Later, as we lay tangled in sheets, a sharp pain lanced through my stomach. I gasped, doubling over. Thorn bolted upright, eyes wild. "Alice!" Another cramp twisted through me, worse than the first. My vision blurred. I tasted metal, blood in my mouth where I'd bitten my tongue. "Poison!" he roared, scenting the air. He scooped me up, bellowing for guards and healers. Through the haze I saw his face. Terror like I'd never seen on the fearless Lycan King. "Stay with me," he begged, voice breaking. "Please, little one, stay." As darkness pulled me under, one final vision flickered. Lady Seraphine in the kitchen, slipping nightshade into a decanter of wine meant for the king. But I had drunk from his cup instead. The last thing I heard was Thorn's anguished howl, shaking the very foundations of the palace. Chapter 5. The Curse Revealed. The world came back in fragments. Sharp antiseptic herbs under my nose, cool cloths on my forehead, Thorn's voice cracking as he barked orders. My eyelids fluttered open to a dim chamber lit by a single candle. The royal healer, an older woman with silver-streaked braids, leaned over me, pressing a foul-tasting tonic to my lips. "Swallow, child, nightshade is stubborn, but you're stronger." I obeyed, grimacing as fire slid down my throat. Only then did I see Thorn. He knelt at the bedside, head bowed, fingers wrapped around mine so tightly my bones ached. His hair was disheveled, tunic wrinkled as though he'd been pulling at it for hours. When he lifted his face, the mighty Lycan King looked shattered. "You're awake," he breathed, voice raw. He pressed my hand to his lips over and over like he couldn't believe I was real. "Goddess, Alice, I thought I'd lost you." "How long?" I croaked. 2 days. His jaw clenched. 2 endless days while the poison burned through you. The healer bowed and slipped out, leaving us alone. Thorn climbed onto the bed fully clothed, pulling me carefully into his arms as though I might break. I let him. The bond thrummed with his terror, his guilt, his relief. It was too heavy to fight. "Seraphine?" I whispered. "In the dungeons," she confessed within minutes. His voice turned cold as winter steel. "The wine was meant for me. You drank from my cup when I looked away." A shiver ran through me. "She wanted you dead." "No." He buried his face in my hair. "She wanted me weak forever. The nightshade dose was small, enough to sicken, not kill. A reminder that I could still be brought low." I pulled back just enough to search his eyes. "Then the curse, it's connected?" He nodded once, slow and heavy. "It's time you knew everything." He carried me, still too weak to walk far, to the firelit study where maps and ancient tomes lined the walls. Settling me into a deep armchair wrapped in furs, he poured 2 glasses of water, then knelt before me again. 10 years ago, he began, voice low, I had a mate, Leora. She was light and laughter where I was shadow and war. We ruled together for 3 short years. Then came the border wars. A rival alpha from the east, Ragnar Blackthorn, coveted our lands. When we crushed his army, his mate, a powerful witch named Isolde, sought revenge. He stared into the flames. She couldn't kill me outright. Royal blood is too strongly guarded by old magic. So she twisted a blood curse. The night Leora died in my arms from a stray arrow, Isolde used her dying breath to seal it. My wolf would feel no desire, no arousal, no bond, ever again. My line would end with me. The throne would fall to chaos. His fingers tightened around the glass until I feared it would shatter. For 10 years it held. No female stirred me. No heat, no scent, nothing. I became the cold king they whispered about, impotent, broken. His eyes met mine, fierce and glistening, until you stumbled into my lap, drunk and desperate and so heartbreakingly brave. Your scent, your untouched blood cracked the curse wide open. I reached for him, cupping his cheek. Why me? He leaned into my touch like a man starved. Isolde's curse had one fatal flaw. It could only be broken by a virgin mate whose blood was freely given under the full moon. Not taken. Given. Shame flickered across his face. I took you the first night, Alice. Roughly. Without true consent. That should have bound the curse tighter. But the goddess, or fate, intervened. Your body responded anyway. The bond began to unravel it. Tears pricked my eyes. So every touch, every kiss, every time I'm inside you, it weakens her magic further. He set the glass aside and took both my hands. You are the antidote I never dared hope for. The weight of it settled over me. I wasn't just a mate. I was the weapon that could save or doom his entire reign. And Seraphine? Her family allied with Ragnar years ago. She's been as old as eyes in court since she was 16. The black rose was Isolde's signature. His expression darkened. Seraphine believed if she kept me weak long enough, Ragnar would march and take the throne unopposed. I shivered despite the furs. What happens now? Now, he said, rising and lifting me into his arms again. I make amends for every moment I've hurt you. He carried me back to bed, but this time there was no rush, no desperation. He undressed me slowly, reverently, kissing every bruise the poison had left behind. When I was bare beneath him, he didn't take, he worshipped. His mouth traced paths of fire down my body, lingering at the mark on my throat, then lower. He parted my thighs with gentle hands and tasted me like I was sacred, tongue slow and deliberate, until I arched off the bed, sobbing his name. Only when I was trembling on the edge did he rise, shedding his clothes and settling between my legs. Look at me, he whispered. I did. Silver eyes locked on mine as he entered me inch by inch, so slowly I felt every throb, every stretch. There was no pain tonight, only fullness, connection, healing. He moved like a prayer, deep and measured, lips brushing mine with every thrust. I'm sorry, he breathed against my mouth. For the claiming, for the fear, for every tear. I wrapped my legs around him, pulling him deeper. Show me, I whispered back. He did, again and again, until pleasure built like a slow tide and crashed over us together. I clung to him as he spilled inside me, feeling the curse crack further, threads of dark magic snapping like brittle ice. Afterward, he held me close, fingers tracing lazy patterns on my back. I love you, Alice, he said quietly into the dark. I know it's too soon. I know I don't deserve to say it yet, but I do. Fiercely, completely. Tears slipped down my temples into my hair, not from pain this time, from the overwhelming sweetness of being wanted, not for my body's cure, but for me. I'm falling too, I admitted, voice small, even when I don't want to. He kissed me soft and lingering, a promise. Sleep pulled at me, warm and safe in his arms, but in the deepest watch of the night, Thorn jerked awake with a guttural snarl. His eyes glowed feral silver, claws extending, fangs lengthening beyond control. He leapt from the bed, slamming into the far wall hard enough to crack stone. Alice, run! He roared, voice distorted, half-beast. The curse wasn't breaking quietly. It was fighting back. I scrambled upright, heart pounding. Thorn! He clawed at his chest, blood welling under his shirt. It's burning. Get out, before I hurt you. Black veins spiderwebbed across his skin, pulsing with Isolde's dark magic. His wolf was surfacing but wrong. Twisted, rabid. I didn't run. I climbed from the bed and walked toward him, naked and trembling but unafraid. Alice, no. I pressed my palms to his heaving chest, right over the spreading darkness. You won't hurt me, I said fiercely. I'm the cure, remember? The moment my skin touched his, light flared from my hands, soft moon silver, warm as summer. The black veins recoiled. He gasped, dropping to his knees, dragging me down with him. We stayed like that until dawn, my light holding his darkness at bay, but both of us knew this was only the beginning of the war. Somewhere beyond the palace walls, Isolde felt her curse falter and smiled. The real fight was coming, and it would demand everything we had. Chapter 6, Running Again. Dawn crept through the windows in pale gold fingers, but the light did nothing to warm the room. Thorn knelt in the middle of the rug, shirt torn open, black veins pulsing beneath his skin like living ink. Sweat beaded on his brow. His claws dug furrows into the stone floor. Every muscle trembled with the effort of holding his wolf back. I knelt in front of him, palms still pressed to his chest. The soft moon glow pouring from my hands kept the darkness from swallowing him completely, but it was fading. My arms shook with exhaustion. I had never channeled power like this before. It felt like trying to hold back a river with my bare fingers. Elara, he rasped, voice barely human. You have to leave, now. If the curse takes me fully, I won't know you. I'll tear through anything in my path, including you. No. The word came out fierce. I'm not losing you the way I almost lost Mama. His laugh was broken, pained. You stubborn little miracle, you think I want this? A spasm racked him. Fangs fully extended, he turned his head away so I wouldn't see the monster trying to surface. The witch is fighting harder because the curse is cracking. If you stay, you'll be the first thing my wolf attacks. Go. Tears blurred my vision. Where am I supposed to go? Anywhere but here. He forced the words through clenched teeth. There's a safe house in the northern woods. Old hunter's cabin warded centuries ago. My guards know it. They'll take you. I shook my head, but the glow under my palms flickered weaker. My strength was draining fast. Thorn's eyes met mine, silver bleeding into feral red. Please, Alara, live. That's an order from your king. The door burst open. 4 royal guards rushed in, faces grim. They had clearly been listening outside, waiting for the command. I tried to stand, but my legs gave out. Thorn caught me before I fell, even through his agony, always protecting me. Then he pushed me toward the guards. Take her north, no stops. If I follow the scent, kill me before I reach her. The captain hesitated. Sire. That's an order. Thorn roared, the sound half snarl, half heartbreak. Strong arms lifted me. I fought them, reaching back toward him. Thorn! He stayed on his knees, head bowed, claws scraping stone. I love you, he said, so quietly I almost missed it over my own sobs. Run, little one. Run. They carried me through secret passages I didn't know existed, down narrow stairs, through hidden doors, into the stables where a horse was already saddled and waiting. Snow had begun to fall, thick silent flakes that muffled the world. I was wrapped in a thick cloak, Thorn's cloak, still carrying his scent. It was the only thing that kept me from screaming as we galloped away from the palace. We rode hard for hours. My body ached from poison and exhaustion and heartbreak, but the guards pushed on until the mountains rose around us like silent guardians. The cabin appeared at dusk, small, ancient, half-hidden by evergreens. Wards shimmered faintly in the air as we crossed the threshold, old magic recognizing royal blood even in the guards. Inside there was a single room, stone hearth, narrow bed, shelves of dried provisions. A fire was lit. Broth was pressed into my hands, but nothing warmed the hollow place in my chest. Night fell. The bond stretched between us like a taut silver thread aching with his pain. I felt every wave of the curse battering him. Rage, despair, mindless hunger. He was fighting it alone. I couldn't stay away. Hours later, when the guards slept, I slipped out the back door. Snow soaked my boots instantly. The moon hung low and bloated, calling to my wolf. I shifted for the first time in weeks. Small, silver-furred. Fast. Thorn's cloak I left behind. I needed nothing to track him but the bond burning in my blood. I ran south toward the palace, paws silent on fresh powder. But the forest had other plans. A howl rose in the distance, not Thorn's, deeper, older, female. The air shimmered with dark magic. Shadows peeled away from the trees, forming a circle around me. I skidded to a halt, hackles rising. From the darkness stepped a woman cloaked in midnight, hood thrown back to reveal pale skin and eyes like chips of obsidian. Black roses were braided into her white hair. Isolde. She smiled, sharp and cold. So the little virgin cure comes to me, how convenient. My growl rumbled low, I crouched ready to spring. Oh, don't bother shifting back, dear. We both know you're no match for me. She lifted one hand, and invisible chains snapped around my legs, forcing me to the ground. Pain lanced through me as the dark magic touched the bond. Thorn felt it too. Somewhere far away, he roared in agony. Isolde knelt, stroking my fur almost gently. He took something precious from me once. Now I'll take something precious from him. She pressed a black rose to my muzzle. The scent was cloying, rotten sweet. My vision swam. Sleep, little queen. When you wake, you'll be deep in my coven's lair, and your king will come for you straight into my trap. Darkness swallowed me. But just before it did, I felt Thorn through the bond, wild, furious, already running. His wolf had fully broken free, but it wasn't mindless anymore. It was hunting. Not me. Her. The last thing I heard was Isolde's confident laugh. And then the distant, earth-shaking howl of a Lycan King who had nothing left to lose. He was coming, and the forest itself trembled at his rage. Chapter 7, Broken King. The palace was a tomb without her. Thorn felt the moment Isolde took Alice, felt it like a blade twisting in his gut. The bond screamed, raw and bleeding, then went terrifyingly quiet as dark magic smothered it. His roar shattered windows in the eastern wing. Guards scattered, servants fled. Then the curse surged, triumphant. Black veins raced across his skin, burning like molten silver. His wolf ripped free without consent, bones cracking, muscles tearing, as he shifted into something monstrous. Larger than any natural lichen, eyes glowing blood red, claws long as daggers. The beast didn't care about thrones or kingdoms, it cared only about one thing. Mate, find mate, kill anything in the way. Thorn's last shred of human control forced words through fangs that no longer fit his mouth. Ready the trackers, we hunt the witch. Then the wolf took over. He tore through the palace gates, splintering ancient oak like kindling. Snow sprayed beneath paws the size of shields. The royal guard followed at a distance. No one dared get close. The king's wolf was no longer protecting the realm. It was destruction on four legs, howling a challenge that rolled across mountains and valleys. Isolde would hear it. She would know he was coming. And she would be ready. Days bled into nights. The beast did not rest. It ran until blood trailed from torn pads, until ribs showed beneath matted fur. It killed 3 rogue wolves that crossed its path, leaving carcasses as warnings. It paused only once, at the warded cabin where Alice's scent still lingered, faint and heartbreaking. The wolf circled the empty space, whining deep in its chest, then threw its head back and howled until the stars trembled. Far away in the coven's underground lair carved beneath forgotten ruins, Alice woke to chains. Iron manacles bound her wrists to a stone altar, etched with runes that glowed sickly green. The air reeked of old blood and black roses. Isolde stood over her, tracing a finger along Alice's marked throat. Such a pretty little cure, the witch crooned. He's coming for you, you know. I can feel his rage shaking the earth. It's delicious. Alice tugged at the chains, skin raw. You won't win, the curse is breaking. Isolde laughed, cold and sharp. It's fighting, yes, but every hour you're apart it digs deeper into him. Soon there'll be nothing left of your precious king, just a rabid beast I can bend to my will. She leaned close, breath like grave dirt. And you, sweet virgin blood, will be the final key. One cut here. She pressed a dagger to Alice's palm. And your essence seals him to me forever. Alice turned her face away, but through the muffled bond she felt Thorn. Wild, furious, closer. She clung to that thread like a lifeline. Back at the palace, those left behind watched their king descend into legend and nightmare. Reports flooded in. Entire forests flattened in his path. Rivers frozen by his roar. A village that tried to bar his way reduced to splinters. The council begged the captain of the guard to declare the throne vacant. He refused, locking himself in the war room with maps and trackers, praying the king found his mate before madness claimed him completely. On the 5th night, something changed. Thorn's wolf collapsed in a snow-choked ravine, sides heaving, blood freezing on its fur. The curse pulsed, victorious, ready to swallow the last of the man. Then warmth flickered through the bond, soft, distant, but unmistakable. Alice. Not words, not images, just feeling. Love, faith, come find me. The wolf's ears pricked. Red eyes flickered silver for the first time in days. And in the depths of the beast, Thorn heard her. That night, across the impossible distance, something extraordinary happened. Alice lay on the cold altar, shivering in nothing but a thin shift. The coven slept. Isolde rested to gather power for the final ritual at the next full moon. Guards patrolled, but none watched the prisoner closely. She was chained, weak, no threat. But the bond was never truly silenced. It started as a whisper of heat low in her belly. She gasped, arching against the stone as pleasure bloomed sudden and fierce. Invisible hands seemed to stroke her skin, calloused, familiar, desperate. Lips that weren't there brushed her throat, her breasts, the mark that still burned with his claim. Thorn. He was reaching for her through the bond. pouring everything he had left into her: love, need, apology, promise. She felt him as clearly as if he lay between her thighs, the hot slide of his body, the stretch and fullness, the way he always watched her eyes when he moved inside her. Her breath came in soft cries she couldn't hold back. Chains rattled as her hips rolled, seeking more of the phantom touch. Across the kingdom in the ravine, the massive wolf went still. Its eyes closed, its breathing deepened, and Thorn dreamed of her. He took her slowly this time. No rush, no curse driving him. He kissed every tear she'd ever cried for him. He whispered forgiveness against her skin. When she came apart in the dream, it was with his name on her lips and his arms cradling her close. The shared release hit them both like thunder. In the lair, Alice's back bowed off the altar, a silent scream of pleasure as warmth flooded her, spilling down her thighs. The runes on the stone flickered, disrupted by the surge of pure mate bond magic. In the ravine, the wolf threw its head back and howled, not rage this time, but triumph. Black veins receded from its fur, claws retracted slightly, the red in its eyes faded to molten silver. The man was winning. Isolde jolted awake in her chambers, feeling the shift. Fury twisted her face. "No," she hissed, storming to the altar room. She found Alice slumped in the chains, flushed and trembling, eyes bright with new hope. "What did you do?" Isolde demanded. Alice lifted her head, voice steady for the first time since capture. "I reminded him who he is." The witch raised her hand, dark magic crackling, but outside the ground began to shake. Howls rose, dozens of them. The royal guard had caught up, trackers, warriors, and leading them closer now, one earth-shattering roar that made the coven's wards shudder. Isolde paled. "He's here," Alice whispered, smiling through tears, "and he's not broken anymore." The witch grabbed the ritual dagger. "Then we finish this now." But the lair doors exploded inward in a shower of stone and splintered wood. The Lycan King stood silhouetted against torchlight, half man, half beast, eyes locked on his mate. And for the first time in 10 years, Thorn's voice rang clear and human through the monster's throat. "Release my queen." The final battle had begun. Chapter 8, The Price of Power. Dust and stone fragments rained from the shattered lair doors as Thorn stepped through the haze. He was no longer fully beast or man, but something caught in between, towering, furred along powerful arms, claws extended, eyes burning silver fire. Blood matted his fur from battles fought to reach this place, but he stood unbroken. Behind him, royal guards poured in, swords drawn, faces grim. They formed a protective ring, but their eyes stayed on their king with awe and fear. Isolde stood before the altar, dagger raised to Alice's throat. A thin line of blood already welled where the tip pressed. "One more step," the witch hissed, "and your little cure dies before you can touch her." Thorn froze. A growl rumbled deep in his chest, shaking loose pebbles from the ceiling. "Harm her," he said, voice layered with wolf and man, "and I will make your death last centuries." Alice's eyes met his across the chamber. Even chained and pale, she looked at him with unwavering trust. The bond pulsed between them, steady, strong, alive. Isolde's grip tightened on the dagger. "You think you've won because the bond woke you? Fool. The curse isn't broken, it's only sleeping. One drop of her virgin blood willingly spilled on this altar, and it binds you to me forever. You'll kneel at my feet while I sit on your throne." Thorn's lips pulled back in a snarl. "There is no willing in this room." Isolde laughed, but it cracked at the edges. She could feel it too, the curse fraying with every heartbeat Alara shared with her true mate. "Then I'll take it unwilling," the witch spat. She sliced downward. Time slowed. Thorn lunged faster than thought, but the distance was too great. Guards shouted. Alice jerked against the chains, but the blade never reached her skin. A burst of pure moonlight erupted from Alara's body, blinding, searing. The chains glowed white-hot and shattered like glass. Isolde screamed as the dagger flew from her hand, melting mid-air. Alice rose from the altar, untouched, radiating silver power. The mark on her throat blazed like a star. "I was never just the cure," Alice said, voice ringing with ancient authority. "I was the key." She stepped forward, and the coven witches lining the walls dropped to their knees, compelled by magic older than Isolde's spite. The moon goddess herself seemed to flow through Alice's veins. Thorn reached her in 3 strides, pulling her into his arms. She clung to him, burying her face in his bloodied chest. "I knew you'd come," she whispered. "Always," he rasped, lips brushing her temple. Isolde scrambled backward, dark magic crackling around her hands. "This isn't over." Thorn turned, placing Alice gently behind him. "Yes, it is." But Alice caught his arm. "Wait." She walked past him toward the altar. The full moon's light poured through a crack in the ruined ceiling, bathing the stone in silver. Ancient runes flared to life beneath her bare feet. "I saw this," she said quietly. "In the visions after the marking. The only way to end it completely." Thorn's heart stopped. "Alice," she turned to him, eyes shining with tears and resolve. "The curse was sealed with a mate's dying blood. It can only be broken with a mate's living blood, freely given under the full moon." He shook his head violently. "No, I won't let you bleed for me." "You already bled for me," she said, touching the scars on his chest. 10 years of emptiness, days of madness. You ran through fire and snow to reach me. Let me finish this." Isolde lunged then, desperate, hurling a spear of black magic straight at Alice's heart. Thorn moved to intercept, but Alice raised her hand. The dark spell shattered against an invisible wall of moonlight. Isolde crumpled, power drained, suddenly old and frail. Alice climbed onto the altar willingly, lying back where she had been chained moments before. She drew a small silver dagger from the ruins, one that had appeared at her touch, blessed by the goddess. "Thorn," she called softly, "come to me." He approached as though pulled by gravity itself. The guards formed a silent circle, heads bowed in reverence. She guided his hand to the dagger. "One cut, my palm to yours, blood to blood, willing." His hand shook. "If this hurts you, it will heal us both." He pressed the blade to her palm. A single line of crimson welled. She turned her hand and pressed it to his chest, directly over his heart where the black veins still lingered. Then she pulled him down, guiding his mouth to the wound. "Drink," she whispered. "Take what was always meant for you." The moment his lips touched her blood, the world exploded in light. Power surged through them both, white-hot, electric, ancient. Thorn groaned against her skin as the curse shattered inside him like glass. Black veins burned away in silver fire. His claws retracted fully. His eyes returned to clear storm gray. Alice arched beneath him, pleasure and pain intertwined as the bond sealed forever. The ritual turned carnal without intent, his body covering hers, her legs wrapping around his hips as instinct took over. Clothes tore away in frantic hands. He entered her in one deep thrust, both crying out at the perfection of it. No curse, no hesitation, only truth. They moved together on the ancient altar, moonlight bathing their joined bodies. Every thrust drove remnants of dark magic from his soul. Every gasp from her lips poured healing into his. When release came, it was cataclysmic. Light bursting outward in waves that shook the lair, crumbling Isolde's remaining wards to dust. The witch screamed one final time before the light consumed her, reducing her to ash that scattered on an unfelt wind. When it faded, Thorn and Alara lay tangled on the altar, breathing hard, whole. The curse was gone, truly gone. He kissed her slowly, reverently, lips, eyelids, the small cut on her palm that was already healing. "My queen," he whispered against her skin. "My everything." She smiled through happy tears. "Your cure worked both ways, my king." The guards knelt as one when they rose, clothed only in each other's arms and moonlight. But as they stepped from the ruins into the cold night air, Thorn stiffened. A new presence waited in the shadows, cloaked, hooded, scent unfamiliar but laced with power. A voice emerged, female and ancient. "The witch is dead, the curse broken, but the debt remains." Thorn shielded Alice instinctively. "Who are you?" The figure lowered her hood, revealing eyes like liquid moonlight. "A servant of the goddess. The price for using her power so freely is balance." Alice's hand found Thorn's, squeezing tight. "What price?" Thorn demanded. The woman's gaze settled on Alice's belly. "A life for a life. The curse stole 10 years of your fertility, King Thorn. The goddess restores it. But the first child conceived under this moon will belong to her before it belongs to you." Thorn's arms tightened around Alice. "No." Alice's breath caught. She touched her stomach, feeling the faint new warmth already kindling there, from their ritual bonding moments ago. The woman inclined her head. The child will be born healthy, powerful. But on its 18th year it must serve the goddess for 7 years. Then it returns to you forever. Silence stretched under the stars. Thorn looked at Alice, eyes fierce with love and fear. She smiled softly, tears falling. A life for a life, she echoed. We accept. The woman nodded once and vanished like mist. Thorn pulled Alice close, burying his face in her hair. We'll face it together, he vowed. Every year, every challenge. She pressed her palm to his heart. We already have. Above them, the full moon began to wane, satisfied. But at the edge of the forest, a single black rose withered and turned to ash. Not all debts were paid yet. And somewhere far away, Ragnar Blackthorn heard of Isolde's death and began to smile. The war was not over. Only changed. Chapter 9, I Choose You. Snow fell soft and silent over the ruined coven lair as Thorn and Alice emerged into the clearing. The guards knelt in the drifts, heads bowed, awe etched on every face. No one spoke. The air itself seemed to hold its breath after the goddess's decree. Thorn's arm stayed locked around Alice as though letting go might make the moment and the price real. His cloak, retrieved by a guard, now draped them both, shielding her bare skin from the cold and prying eyes. Alice's hand rested low on her abdomen, over the faint warmth that had already taken root. A child. Their child. Conceived in moonlight and sacrifice, under the very ritual that shattered a decade-long curse. But marked from birth for the goddess, 7 years of service starting at 18. 7 years without their son or daughter. The thought clawed at her chest, sharp and terrifying. Thorn felt it through the bond, her fear mirroring his own. He pressed his lips to her temple. We have 18 years, he said quietly. 18 years to love fiercely enough to last a lifetime. She turned in his arms, searching his storm-gray eyes. And if the child resents us for accepting, then we will love them through the resentment too. His voice was steady, but she felt the tremor beneath it. We will teach them why. We will make the goddess's service an honor, not a punishment. A tear slipped down her cheek, freezing in the cold air. I'm scared, Thorn. He cupped her face, thumbs brushing the tear away. So am I, but I have never been more certain of anything than I am of us. He lifted her into his arms and carried her to the waiting horses. The ride back to the palace took 2 days, slow, careful, guarded by the entire royal contingent. They stopped often so she could rest, eat, drink the herbal tea the healer insisted on. Thorn never left her side, one hand always on her, palm over her belly, fingers threaded through hers, lips against her mark. At night, in whatever shelter they found, he held her close beneath shared furs. On the second night, camped beneath a canopy of ancient pines, the fear finally broke free. Alice woke gasping from a dream, her child grown and beautiful, walking away into moonlight without looking back. She sat up, clutching her stomach, tears streaming silently. Thorn was awake in an instant, pulling her into his lap. Talk to me. I dreamed they hated us, she whispered against his chest. That they blamed us for the 7 years. He rocked her gently, hand stroking her hair. Then we will love them so fiercely in the years we have that hate has no room to grow. She looked up at him, eyes shining in the firelight. Make me feel it, Thorn, make me believe we can survive this. His breath caught at the raw plea in her voice. He laid her back on the furs slowly, reverently, as though she were the most fragile and precious thing in his world. Which she was. The fire crackled beside them, painting gold across their skin. He undressed her with deliberate care, kissing every inch revealed. The curve of her shoulder, the swell of her breast, the still flat plane of her belly where their future slept. When she was bare beneath him, he paused, eyes drinking her in. You are my salvation, he said, voice rough with emotion. And now you carry our future, let me worship you both. His mouth began a slow pilgrimage, lips trailing fire down her throat, lingering at the mark until she arched with a soft cry. He tasted her breasts, tongue swirling until her fingers tangled in his hair, pulling him closer. Lower still, parting her thighs with gentle hands, he brought her to the edge with patient, devastating strokes of his tongue. Only when she was trembling, pleading, did he rise above her. He entered her inch by agonizing inch, eyes locked on hers, letting her feel every throb of his love. There was no rush tonight, only deep, measured strokes that reached places inside her no one else ever could. His hand splayed over her belly, connecting all three of them. "I love you," he whispered with every thrust. "I love you, I love you." Tears slipped from the corners of her eyes, not from pain, but from the overwhelming beauty of being so completely cherished. She wrapped her legs around him, meeting each movement, giving back everything he poured into her. When release came, it was slow and shattering, rolling through them like a warm tide. She clung to him, sobbing his name into his shoulder as he spilled inside her, arms shaking with the intensity of it. Afterward, he didn't let go. He stayed buried deep, forehead pressed to hers, breathing her in. "We will survive this," he vowed against her lips, "because I finally have everything to live for, you, our child, our family." She nodded, tears still falling, but a fragile smile breaking through. "I choose you," she whispered. "Every day, every challenge. I choose us." He kissed her then, soft, lingering, sealing the promise. They fell asleep tangled together, fire dying to embers, snow whispering against the tent. Dawn brought them within sight of the palace, but peace was short-lived. A rider met them on the mountain pass, face grim beneath his helmet. "Your Majesty, urgent news from the border." Thorn's arms tightened around Alice on the horse. "Speak." "Ragnar Blackthorn has declared war. His armies march on the eastern valleys. He claims the throne weakened by the broken curse and demands submission or blood." Alice felt Thorn's rage flare through the bond, hot and lethal. "How long?" he demanded. 3 weeks until they reach the capital at forced march." Thorn looked down at Alice, eyes fierce with protection. "Then we have 3 weeks to prepare." She touched his cheek. "And 18 years to love our child before the goddess calls." He nodded once, jaw set. "We will win this war. We will secure a kingdom safe for our heir. And when the time comes, we will stand proud as they answer the goddess's call, knowing they go with our love stronger than any chain." The palace gates opened as they approached, banners flying despite the coming storm. News of the king's full restoration and the queen's pregnancy had already spread. Cheers rose from the walls, genuine this time. Even the nobles who had whispered poison now bowed low. That night in their chambers, Thorn stood at the window watching snow fall over the kingdom he would fight to protect. Alice came up behind him, wrapping her arms around his waist, palms resting over their child. "We'll face Ragnar together," she said quietly, "and whatever comes after." He turned, pulling her close. "Together," he echoed. But as they stood there, a shadow moved in the courtyard far below. A cloaked figure slipping through a side gate, carrying a single black rose that had somehow bloomed in winter. The messenger vanished into the night, heading east, toward Ragnar's army, and in the distance thunder rolled through the sky was clear. The final war had begun, but for tonight, in the quiet before the storm, the Lycan King and his queen held each other and the fragile new life between them, and chose love over fear. One day at a time. Chapter 10, Crowned in Blood and Love. 3 weeks passed in a storm of steel and fire. Ragnar Blackthorn's armies swept across the eastern valleys like a plague, burning villages, claiming territory, leaving black banners in their wake. But they met resistance they hadn't expected. A king fully restored, body, wolf, and heart, stood at the head of a united kingdom. Thorn rode at the forefront of every charge, silver armor gleaming, eyes blazing with protective fury. Beside him, always beside him now, rode Alice. Her pregnancy was still early, hidden beneath fitted leather armor, but her presence on the battlefield ignited the troops like nothing else. The queen who had broken the curse. The queen who carried the future. Whispers spread even to Ragnar's ranks. The Lycan King fought like a god reborn, and his mate wielded moonlight itself. The final battle came at dawn on the frost-covered plains before the capital. Ragnar waited on a black warhorse, broad and scarred, eyes cold with old hatred. The throne was meant to crumble, he snarled across the space between armies. "Isolde promised me that." Thorn dismounted, sword in hand. "Your witch is ash. Your promise is dust." They clashed like thunder. The fight was brutal, primal, 2 alpha kings tearing at each other with blade and claw. Blood sprayed across snow. Ragnar fought dirty, dark remnants of Isolde's magic crackling around his fists. Thorn fought with clarity, every strike fueled by the bond humming in his veins. Alice watched from the ridge, heart in her throat, guards flanking her. When Ragnar landed a vicious blow that sent Thorn to his knees, she couldn't stay back. Moonlight flared around her hands, goddess-given power surging to protect what was hers. She raised her arms, and a wall of silver light slammed down between the combatants, forcing Ragnar back. Thorn rose, eyes locked on her, love and pride blazing. Together they advanced. Ragnar's army faltered, seeing their leader outnumbered by raw power and unbreakable unity. One by one, they dropped weapons. By midday, Ragnar knelt in the snow, sword broken, blood freezing on his beard. Thorn stood over him. Yield. Ragnar spat blood. Kill me. No, Thorn said quietly. You will live, in the deepest dungeon, and every day you will remember that love won this war, not hate. The Eastern Alpha was dragged away in chains. The war ended not with a roar but with silence, then cheers that shook the mountains. They returned to the palace victorious. Spring came early that year, as though the land itself celebrated. Snow melted into rivers that ran clear and sweet. Mama arrived at court fully healed, walking without aid, eyes wide at the grandeur. She wept when she saw Alice's gently rounded belly, then again when Thorn knelt before her, not as king but as the man who owed her everything. I can never repay the gift of your daughter, he told her, but I will spend my life trying. Mama pulled him into a fierce hug. Just love her. That's all I ever asked. The coronation came on the first warm day. The great hall overflowed with wolves from every pack, nobles in silk, border families in wool, warriors still bearing bandages. Sunlight poured through stained glass, painting the floor in jeweled colors. Alice walked the long aisle alone, gown of white and silver flowing around her like moonlight-made fabric. The swell of her pregnancy was now visible, a gentle curve that drew soft gasps and smiles. At the dais, Thorn waited in black ceremonial armor chased with silver wolves, eyes never leaving her. The high priestess placed the ancient crown on Thorn's head first, renewing his vow to protect the realm. Then she turned to Alice. With this crown you are named queen consort and true mate of the Lycan King. Do you accept the duty to stand beside him, to heal and guide, to bear the future of our people? Alice's voice rang clear. I accept with all my heart. The crown settled on her brow lighter than she expected. Cheers erupted, howls joining from wolf throats. But the moment that broke her, in the most beautiful way, came after. Thorn led her through the cheering crowd to the palace's highest balcony, overlooking the kingdom spread below in spring green and river silver. The sun warmed their faces. The people gathered in the courtyard, thousands strong, waiting. He turned to her, taking both her hands. I claimed you once in desperation, he said, loud enough for all to hear, yet intimate as a whisper. Now I claim you in joy. He sank to one knee before her, king before queen in front of the entire realm. Alice Voss Blackwood, my miracle, my heart, my salvation, will you choose me as I choose you? Not because fate demanded it, not because a curse broke, but because you want me, every day for the rest of our lives? Tears blurred her vision. She pulled him to his feet and into her arms. Yes, she said against his lips, every day, every challenge, every joy, I choose you. He kissed her then, deep, unhurried, pouring 10 years of loneliness and every moment of healing into it. The kingdom roared approval below. That night, after feasts and dancing and toasts that lasted till dawn, they slipped away to the royal chambers. The balcony doors stood open to warm spring air scented with pine and distant flowers. Moonlight bathed the bed in silver. Thorn undressed her slowly, reverently, hands lingering on the curve of her belly. Our child grows strong, he murmured, lips brushing the skin there, just like their mother. He laid her back on cool sheets, following her down, covering her body with his. They moved together with the ease of true mates. No urgency, only deep, endless connection. He whispered love against her skin with every slow thrust, hands cradling her belly, her breasts, her face. When pleasure took them, it was quiet and shattering. Tears on both their cheeks from the sheer beauty of it. Afterward, tangled in sheets and moonlight, Alice traced the line of his jaw. I was so afraid that night at the mating ball, she whispered. I thought I'd lost everything. Thorn pressed her palm over his heart. You found everything, we both did. She smiled, sleepy and content. Even with the goddess's price? He kissed her fingertips. Especially because of it. Our child will know they were born from the greatest love this kingdom has ever seen, and when they return after 7 years, they'll come home to parents who never stopped waiting. Alice's eyes drifted closed, hand resting over their child. Just before sleep took her, she murmured against his chest, "I accidentally danced on the Alpha King's lap, and somehow I ended up with his heart." Thorn's arms tightened, voice rough with emotion. "And I, little one, will spend every day thanking the goddess you did." Outside, the moon watched over a kingdom finally at peace. Inside, the Lycan King and his queen slept, crowned in blood and love, ready for whatever the future held. Together.
Always.
If you laughed, cried, gasped, and felt your heart race through every stolen touch, every desperate howl, and every tear-soaked kiss. If Alice and Thorn's wild, painful, beautiful love story left you breathless and believing in fated mates all over again, then don't let their journey end here. Share this story with the one friend who lives for possessive alpha kings, accidental lap dances, and second chance magic. Drop your favorite moment in the comments. I need to know which scene made you scream, swoon, or sob the hardest. Save this series so you can reread it whenever you need to remember that even the most broken hearts can be healed by the right touch. Follow for more emotional werewolf romances that hurt so good, because a love this fierce deserves to be howled about under every full moon. Who's ready for the next forbidden mate bond? Tell me below. Your vote might just decide the next story I tell.